And I'm joined now by Sourabh Gupta. He's a senior fellow at the Institute for China-America Studies. Maybe we can use your time wisely because we've got a lot of ground to cover. He went to Brunei, he went to Manila, came back with deals. What's your takeaway?
I think it has been very, very productive equation in Southeast Asia. It just shows how far China and Southeast Asian relations have progressed in the past 2 years, particularly since the incumbency of President Duterte in July 2016, and the arbitration award, because that was the end of a chapter in China-Southeast Asia relations, a bad chapter in Southeast Asia relations. Things have just flowed on from there on a good track, and we are seeing the results of that, frankly, coming right now.
And the exploration deal, South China Sea is still out there, but does this help kind of mend that in some respects, that they're cooperating on that?
This, I think, is frankly huge. It's an important metric to gauge the state of China-Southeast Asia relations by seeing the state of affairs in the South China Sea. The South China Sea had plunged, nosedived during the first half of this decade for a variety of reasons, including the arbitration which was ongoing between China and the Philippines. They have arrived at a memorandum of understanding, and thereafter they will proceed with an operational agreement with regard to joint development in the South China Sea. And the beauty of this agreement is that it is a creative application both of the arbitration award and of another important guardrail, which was the Philippines Constitution. It had to be done within the bounds of the Philippines Constitutions. Both of them are not being violated, and yet creatively the two parties are getting together.
How about Port Moresby? What came away from APEC?
It was disappointing what came away from APEC. The Asian multilateral summits, the regional summitry, prospers when there is consensus among the parties. And it is the goal of the parties, particularly the big players, not to push the agenda too hard. Because when one pushes an agenda too hard, it gets to the point that you cannot arrive at that consensus. Regional summitry in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN and in East Asia, is ultimately about expanding the space for economic engagement. You need to come there with a message of how you are going to enhance prosperity and enhance liberalization in the region. The US didn't have that message this time. It came in with that little more unilateralist mindset, and it wanted to force certain provisions in the joint communique at APEC, and China balked, and then the two parties game dynamics set in, and things just did not go, and that's frankly very unfortunate. And
that's kind of setting the table for the G20. There's been a lot of talk, perhaps Trump and Xi will meet, they'll come to some sort of agreement. We're reading stories today that US farmers just letting their crops rot in the field. The storage fees just are spiking, they can't handle it. You've seen in Iowa where the soybean farmers are really taking a hit, where Democrats won some key House seats in this recent election. Does any of that provide an impetus for the Trump administration to try and reach some sort of agreement with China on this trade dispute?
I am frankly cautiously optimistic of what will come out of the G20, and there are reasons for that. At APEC, we had Vice President Pence handed down a script and told him to take that script and stick to it. And it was an angry script, and he stayed scripted, and we had the casualty at APEC. But with regard to the G20, President Trump is leading the way, and he has shown an interest in working out some arrangements with President Xi. In addition, I think one of the very important messages coming out of this midterm election is that those three crucial, historically Democrat-leaning states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which had gone to Mr. Trump, went back to the Democrats in that election. Now, each of them are Rust Belt states which should have prospered because of the steel tariffs. In fact, that did not, it was not electorally saleable. And so I'm hoping Mr. Trump will see that tariffs actually are not bringing him electoral purchase and might be actually damaging him, and that he might have an interest in trying to seek a resolution to these disputes.
Well, we'll be covering it next week. We'll be watching it very closely, as will you. Thanks so much for coming in, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you.